I am so excited to present this interview with Ted Tahquechi to all of you. This gentleman was the senior producer at Atari Corp for nearly 9 years, and you can just tell that he worked his butt off at the company and really believed in what they were trying to do. I have no doubt that after listening to this interview, you won't be able to deny that these guys at Atari Corp were working their humps off, trying to make the Jaguar, Lynx, and everything else a success. Ted himself has credits on Gordo 106, Dirty Larry, Batman Returns on the Lynx, DinoDudes, Trevor and Crescent Galaxies, Cybermorph, Alien vs. Predator, Tempest 2000, Kasumi Ninja, and many more. And he has some great insight into the development of these games, the Jaguar itself as a console, what it was like at Atari Corp, and a ton more. So I won't keep you waiting. Let's dive into the interview. And while you watch, keep in mind some questions you might have, as Ted is open to doing a Q&A episode in the future. Leave those questions in the comments down below, and enjoy the video.
Toot, toot, baby, you're riding the funk train. This is Funk Master V, and I got John Stoll here, and we got a special guest, baby, Ted Tahquechi. Oh, my. Now, if you don't know who this cat is, he is what you call a big wig for Atari through the years. I think the mid-'80s to the damn end. He was there with gun blazing, trying to keep this MFer alive. Now, the thing that's wild about this cat, John, we're going to pretend he's not in the room for a second, is he was there, you know, there's kind of the sexy 70s, right? Mm-hmm. We had Nolan Bushnell, tons of coke, video games that had boobs.
Allegedly.
Yeah, that you know, weed, Sunnyvale, pre-Silicon Valley. You had a game that you controlled that had boobs called Gotcha. I mean, it was just a sexy, crazy time. Then it was sold, and then you had the Jack Tramiel after Warner Brother, and then it kind of got to where it was a little bit tumultuous. And I'm wondering, I can't wait to ask this guy what it was like post-sexy Atari, trying to keep the damn thing alive. And he was there a long time. So introduce your man here. You guys are your buddies or something behind my back. So go ahead.
No, I've been trying to get him on the show here for a very, very long time, and I'm so excited to have him. And I think I could introduce him, but I think it's better to have Ted go ahead and give us an introduction of who you are and why we should care.
Let's see. I was a senior producer. I started at Atari out of college, and kind of worked my way up the corporate ladder there for many, many years, from being a tester in the games department or in the QA department up through being a senior producer. And then in the last days when things were closing up, then I headed off to another company called Accolade, and then ended up at Mattel Toys as the director of their Hot Wheels division for a lot of years too.
My grandfather would have loved you. He loved Hot Wheels.
Oh my God.
He was a collector.
So what, and congratulations. I don't know if you got any Oscars or anything from Barbie. Congratulations on that being a smash hit. But so what were the years that you were at Atari?
I was there from about 87 till about 96 or so.
So we're talking 7800.
Mm-hmm.
The end of the 7800.
Now, did you fool with the computers at all?
I was kind of like the guy that was the close. They called me the closer. So anything from the time that I left the test department and became an associate producer, everything that was needing to be finished up kind of got dumped on my plate. So I worked on some 5200 games. I worked on some 2600 games that were sitting around for literally decades. I worked on a bunch of Lynx games. I worked on some Falcon 030 games, and some other software titles for the Falcon 030, one ST title, a whole bunch of Jaguar stuff. So yeah, just kind of all over the place.
I have to ask, what 5200 game what would there be left to work on at that time? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I don't even remember, to tell you the truth. I remember it was one, and it was finished up just as I was doing other things with the Jaguar. It was kind of one of those closeout things. But basically what they just did was they finished up, did the last payment, and kind of stuffed it in a drawer.
Oh, wow.
I wish I had that drawer.
I know.
I probably have it laying around somewhere if you want it.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mystery, especially around the Jaguar and how, that lifespan and what happened with the Jaguar, where it was some games were absolutely excellent, like Tempest and Alien versus Predator, and some were some of the worst video games ever made and released in the history of God and creation.
Yep.
So, since you were you knew there was a huge variance of quality that was coming out of there. What did you have a lot of stress on you at the time? What was that like to know when you were playing a game like Highlander and you're like, ow, this is rough, or White Man Can't Jump, and then you were playing a game like Alien versus Predator where you're like, wow, this can actually save my job. What was that like when you were experiencing all these types of titles there during the Jaguar run?
It was tough. And, I think that there were, I was a huge Tempest fan. So I was really involved in the development of that one all the way from the beginning, from the time that we signed the contract all the way up until it was released. And like I said, I was telling you guys earlier that I was the primary voices for it, and my wife was the female voices.
Wow.
And
I have some questions for her, by the way.
I can drag her in. She's in the no. She'd kill me. But it was one of those things. It was a passion project, right? And I think a lot of the stuff that the Jaguar were passion projects that really shined, right? So like Aliens versus Predator really shined because the people that were on it were in it to win it, and they did everything that they could to make it work. And it just so happened that they had a team that was able to pull it off. But the development environment for the Jaguar was kind of far from stellar. I don't know how much you guys know about the whole backstory with that, but there was not a lot of support for developers, and a lot of it was if you can't program for this, then you shouldn't be in the games development industry, and just all of these things. And it was very disheartening. So it really did show in some of the titles, and especially with the developers that were maybe not as seasoned as others.
You started working for Atari. Were you an Atari fan? I mean, you liked Asteroid, Centipede, Tempest, Crystal Castles. Was that on your radar, or was it just a job that you got?
I would say that I was a huge game fan from the time that my sister actually was a security guard for Atari, and she worked at the Borregas Avenue, the 1192 Borregas. So she was there. So she got me my first 2600. So it kind of started with that. But I'm sorry,
she stole it.
No, she got it.
Okay. I just thought she's security
Not
guard.
everybody steals.
The employee purchase system or whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
So she
I'm
got
from
it.
Baltimore. I'm just forgive me.
Yeah,
so keep going.
So, but I was not necessarily a huge Atari fan, but I was a games fan. So, I spent a lot of time playing Super Mario and all the everything that Nintendo had to offer, as well as the original 2600 stuff. I mean, I remember going into Toys R Us and buying I think it was Demon Attack, if I remember correctly, and just being there on the day that it came out, and how expensive those cartridges were, but it was worth it in the day. And of course, Pitfall, I was was a huge Activision fan. And I remember, finally getting the high score for River Raid and taking a picture of it with my Polaroid camera and sending it in and getting a little patch and, all that sort of stuff. So, that was me. I was a huge game fan.
But so that's interesting. So you weren't like the last guy we interviewed he's like me and John, Atari homers. We almost like Atari could poop in a box, and we'd be like, well, it's got character, so it's good to see. So you knew about Atari, Nintendo and Sega, and so you were aware of all this stuff. So when you came on, you knew that there were issues, I guess, after the video game crash, and how the 7800 was delayed, and how there was We had the 5200 competing against the 7800, competing against the computer line, and how weird that was. Yep. Yeah, and the 2600 was still around too. So, what were your personal thoughts on the milieu of Atari at that point? Were you like, this is just, if we're here for another year, we're lucky? Or did you think we're going to fight like hell and we're going to make this work? What did you think?
There was never a doubt in, I think, anybody's mind that was in-house there, that we were going to be able to make it. And you know, for as many problems as we knew that the platforms, and I'll say that, you know, the Lynx definitely had issues as well. But of course, you know, the Jaguar was kind of the problem child in many different ways. I would say that there wasn't anybody there that didn't think that we could push through and make this happen. And, you know, cool. I mean, the writing was on the wall, right? I mean, we didn't have the big tier titles that we needed to have. We didn't have the frame rate. We didn't have the development tools. We didn't have, you know, yada, 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 right? All of the things that we needed to have to make it succeed weren't there, but we were doing everything that we could do to make it happen. So there was never any doubt.
Well, and again, sorry, John, just cut me off. I'm just, go
on. You're on a roll.
I just ate an entire bowl of Fruity Pebbles.
We heard.
And I'm going crazy. I'm sorry. I was going to do it anyway. So, and there were some very awesome highlights through that time. I mean, me and John, I'm a 7800 guy, and that's my favorite system. The homebrew scene is probably one of the best homebrew scenes right now, and any system is for the 7800. And it's fun to horse around with that. The Lynx was freaking a juggernaut, and should have hit a home run. But games like Alien Brigade, Midnight Mutants, Ninja Golf, these were awesome later in life for the 7800. Did you have your fingerprints on any of those 7800 titles?
There was like the 5200. There was one that I finished, but I'll be darned if I can remember exactly which one it was. And at that point, you know, even with the 2600 stuff that we were finishing up, it was basically not a whole lot more than just, you know, checking the final milestones, checking the final builds of the games, you know, and closing out the contracts and making sure the developers were paid so that they could move on and we could move on is really all it was. So just kind of finishing things up, but, you know, no specific things for development of 7800 titles for me. A lot of Lynx stuff for sure.
Well, the Lynx was awesome too. So help me out here because I'm ignorant. You could probably already tell that, but I make movies. So in my world, a producer could mean anything. It could be a friend of a guy. It could be the guy who's the money mark, who's putting up the nut to make the damn thing. It could be the location guy. It could be people with ideas. So in your world with video games, the producer sounds like he's the guy that kind of just makes everything. You're almost like the director. It's almost like that's what you like. You're just figuring out, okay, we got to do this. We got paperwork over here. Is that kind of what you did as a producer?
Well, the actual title itself, you know, when I worked for Atari Accolade and Mattel, the actual title was senior producer, but pretty much everywhere else would call it senior product manager. Okay. And basically the you know, encapsulated description of that job is you're responsible for every aspect of a product's title for release, from, you know, design all the way up through testing and, you know, development, choosing programming teams if that's what you need to do, you know, even doing the marketing and that kind of stuff, and working with the marketing department, working out a marketing plan. And so, I mean, you kind of got your fingers in every aspect of a title. And you know, that makes, you know, titles like Kasumi Ninja and stuff like that were not, you know, great, kind of painful, because, you know, you're there and you're banging on the developer and saying, we need to make this better, and here's how we need to make it better. And, you know, there was cases where they couldn't get it done.
Wow. Okay. So let's pick that apart. I'm not familiar with Kasumi Ninja. What, John? You had a Jaguar. What is that game? Remind me what that game.
What it ended up being when it came out was a 2D Mortal Kombat style game. It had the digitized sprites, crazy characters. You had the guy shooting fireballs from his kilt, and the
Scottish guy. Yes, I remember.
Angus. Yep.
All the
And
silly stuff.
oh yeah, all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yep.
And the reason I actually reached out to Ted, and I got to get this answer because the guy that wanted it will kill me if I don't. He said he bought the game because he assumed, or he had heard or read in an advertisement, that you could collect artifacts and enter a 3D world and do fighting and stuff. Was there supposed to be any more to Kasumi Ninja than what we got? And if so,
Well,
how much more?
yeah, originally, because we were early days with the Jaguar and, early days with 3D titles and that sort of stuff. And because Aliens versus Predator was doing really well in all of the marketing, shows that it had gone through, it was one of those things that, we got to put 3D aspect in every title that we can. And we need to put, everything that we can into every game that we can, so that it shows off what the Jaguar can do. And some of that was to the detriment of the actual game itself. And Kasumi Ninja was the case of that, is that the development team, we were running down the street working on the actual fighting game. And to create a fighting game is, no small feat in itself. And between having the characters, working the design of the characters, balancing the characters, and then, talking about actually getting the moves. And, if you want to talk about the Jaguar controller, we can talk about that later too. I mean, that's
not a fighting game controller. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's not a really an anything game controller, in my opinion, but that's just me, I guess. But yeah. And then, we're running down that road, and we can see the finish line, and we know that what we need to do in the last, 90 days, 120 days of a game's development is all tuning, right? No matter what it is, you get it to alpha so that you've got all of your features in and your feature complete, and then you start tuning the gameplay, and you just hammer on the gameplay until management tells you it's time to make it go, to market. And that's what we were doing. So we were post alpha, we were running down that street, and then I'm not going to say who, but there was managerial decisions that were made that we needed to add the 3D component into it and design that into it, because everything in the Jaguar had to be 3D because of Aliens versus Predator.
Wow.
So that's kind of where we ended up with that. But yeah, the whole, collecting artifacts was that there was little statues of the guys, and you would technically collect them when you,
oh, okay.
when you finished their level and beat them, that you would collect them, and then when you would move on. But yeah, originally there was a whole lot more to that aspect of the game, the whole exploration, aspect of it. But it didn't really make a lot of sense in the way that it was executed for a fighting game. And that's difficult, because you're talking about, implementing a dungeon crawler into a fighting game, and it's just two completely polar opposite, games. And it's like, what?
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
And normally when you have two different genres conflated into one cartridge, they're both terrible. It's like,
absolutely.
You're just, there's no way to make both great or whatever.
Well, and then at that point it became, well, what can we do to make it, so that it at least gets the notoriety that it is. So we'll make it super bloody, we'll make it super silly, and we'll make it, everything you can possibly make about it tongue in cheek. And, a lot of it was, incredibly politically incorrect, especially with the faux Japanese voices and all of that stuff that were done by the developer, and, decisions that were way out of my control, that I never would have made.
Well, talk about a winner. Which one? Tell me about something that you were involved in where it was a dog, and then by the time you got done polishing that turd, you were like, this is a pretty damn good game.
I would say that, I wasn't, the producer for it, but I was heavily involved in Tempest. I loved that game. Jeff Minter is an amazing programmer, and he can pull so much out of thin air and just do so much with that. And everything that everybody on that team accomplished was just amazing. And I'm really happy to have been part of it in any aspect.
Oh, absolutely. It's called the greatest Jaguar game for a reason. I mean, I've heard everybody I talk to say that.
It could be considered the best Atari game of all time, and it could be considered one of the best video games of all time. I mean, it's a game. I'm actually, Jeff Minter's game is released today. Digital Eclipse is just, as we're doing this recording, is releasing their Jeff Minter collection, which hopefully comes to the VCS. And tomorrow on my channel, I'm doing a Jeff Minter Day, and we're talking about why people are hung up on Tempest 4000, which I think is a good game.
Yep.
But people still seem to prefer the 2000. So I'm going to get into that a little bit. But that's got to make you feel good that there's been 2 sequels come out, and both people and everybody loves 2000 and 3000 even more. 2000 over 3000 and 4000.
Yeah,
sorry,
I wish it was my title. I mean, I wish it was the one that I was at the helm of, but I did everything that I need to do to make it as great as it possibly could in my role as a advisor and whatnot.
No, you did good. Yeah. Give yourself a pat on the back there. Now you voiced all the voices in Tempest 2000.
All the male voices.
All the male voices. Yeah, and then I'm in among all of the things that I did there for being a senior product manager or producer, I did sound effects for a lot of the games. So like DinoDudes and all that kind of stuff. I love to do Foley work. I've had a Foley studio for as long as I can possibly remember, because I worked in radio before I worked at Atari. So I had, everything that I needed to be able to do that. And, we had really, really tight budgets and we had really, really tight timelines for development of everything. And, it kind of came down to can you make this happen? So I was sound guy for a lot of the titles that, it just had to be done at a certain amount of time. And so I had to kind of fit that in with everything else that I was doing.
Now, did Jeff bring you back in for Tempest 4000?
My understanding is that those are my voices as well.
Yeah, they're the same voices in there.
All right, and that means Wifey Pooh is in this too.
I heard her.
Yeah, as far as I know, because he's got all those original files, so I'm sure that's what it was. But I haven't done anything specific for it since I did those back in the 90s.
Well, I assume you laid.
Hold on. There's a section in Tempest 4000 where you've got wife making some very suggestive noises. In fact, everybody in the house was like, "What the hell are you watching in there?" It sounds like a disco party. And then occasionally, instead of Wifey Poo making whatever noise, you got like a bull or something. It just sounds like we're in Mexico in Tijuana or something. I'm just like, what is happening down here? But that was an interesting choice. Yep. But it's fun. And that's the thing about Tempest. And Tempest 4000 is great too, because it's even funnier in some ways. But you really don't know what's going to freaking happen. I'm sorry, John. I stepped on your toes there.
No, you're fine. I assume you laid the track down for the voices, and they did a lot of work on it, on the actual words you said, or did they not do much play to it?
At the time, it was all done on Amiga 2000s, because we had Amiga 2000s laying around from Lynx development, and they were just everywhere. So I had one at home, and we were just running it into that. We used a digital capture card, and we just ran it right in my studio at home, and I handed off all of the original files. I used, I think if I remember correctly, like an old Alesis quadraverb for all of the effects, but they were all done in real time, one shots. So that was it.
Did you have any direction? Like, what was there a paper there that said, okay, now say literally yes, nothing. Yes, and then say
literally nothing.
No. You came up with all that like treasure.
Off top of your guys.
So my boss.
Go ahead.
My boss really just wanted some incredibly sexy female voices, and he's like, can your wife deliver on this? And I'm like, yeah, she can do it. So. Yeah.
What's crazy is just like the word. I'll play it at like 4 a.m. and I will still laugh because because it'll be like a couple weeks or maybe a month or so before I don't play Tempest. I'll play it again. First thing, pleasure. It's just the voice of pleasure. I'm like, that's such a silly word that makes no sense. Then there's treasure, there's angel, and you're like, heaven. What are we talking about here? What's happening in this game anyway? I've never understood Tempest, but it's a hell of a fun game to play. But I
don't think it's necessarily meant to be understood. Just have a good time and right. just twitch. I
just get half baked and try to figure out God when I play it.
Yeah. There you go.
So a lot of Lynx games, huh? Anything that you're proud of with the Lynx run?
Well, I was one of the testers on Gordo 106. That was early, so I love that title. I was primary tester on that one, so I remember, being able to play that one literally blindfolded, and my boss coming in, and I could make it to like level 4 with literally the blindfold on. So it was pretty
Gordo
terrifying.
106? Why do I not know this?
You don't know that one?
It was the monkey.
Yeah, the monkey laboratory game.
Yep.
What?
Yep, it was a fun game. Yeah,
I don't know. I don't remember that. Now there's a blindfold challenge we got to throw out there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I would say that one of my biggest memories about the Lynx is the Todd's Slime World, and so because of the ability to link all the games together, we would do 8-player. That was our lunchtime. So we would stop somewhere around noon, and we'd all the people that were in the test department would all link up, and we'd do the 1 versus 7. So it was last man standing, and I still hold the record for being the last guy standing and like a whole bunch of different times, and it was terrifying and sweat inducing and all of that.
Oh, Gordo, the mutated lab monkey.
Yep.
Was this released?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was really. Come on, Vinnie.
Don't do
your
that
research.
To me. I used to have almost all the Lynx games. I never even heard of that damn thing. Did you have anything to do with Rampart or APB?
No, those were Rampart was being done in-house, and so I didn't have anything to do with that. APB was shortly after I started there. I was a tester on that one, but didn't really have anything to do. It was just a arcade convert, so it wasn't there wasn't really a lot to do as far as game design and that kind of stuff, because it's all built off of the game machine.
So you really helped out when there was game design, when you guys were making something in house. Okay, excellent.
I've been told that I've forgotten more about game design than most people know.
I'm sure. Probably definitely forgot more than me and Vinnie know combined, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, we're stupid as shit. We still think there's elves inside the machines, and they're like dancing around like shadow puppets, and that's what we play.
I still blow on my carts, so
as you should.
Yeah,
and
right.
The CDs, right?
Yeah, I'll never stop doing that. So I have to ask. So you worked at Atari Corp for a very long time. Who all within Atari Corp? Any notable names we would know that you worked with? Sam, Jack, any of those guys?
I worked with Sam on a daily basis. I mean, he was the guy that you would go to, and you would, need to be having milestone paperwork signed off and that sort of stuff. So, I was always dragging him into the office and making him play the games that were there, because I had a really strong feeling that especially management should be gaming and be passionate about the games. And I would always just try to get them to sit down and just play it, so that, when somebody's talking to you about it, this is the thing that you're selling, and that's one of the things that really, I think, compared to anywhere else I worked. I mean, Mattel was great. It was kind of a super family oriented company, and Accolade, the people there had a ton of passion for what they did, but nobody but Atari had, that level of crazy passion for games. And we were just, it was kind of a bit of a dichotomy in that the management didn't really play games very much, but everybody else did. So we would, drag them kicking and screaming in, and they would ask us, is this good? And you would say, I don't know. Let's play it for a couple of hours and find out and see what you think.
Yeah.
Is it good?
Okay. So Sam, I always heard Sam kind of appreciate. He pushed for the Jaguar, was the rumor. I think I heard he really believed in it.
He did.
So I could believe you dragging Sam down. There's no way you drove. You had Jack Trammell playing.
Not Jack. No.
Okay.
No,
I was going to say.
Jack wasn't there very often.
Say.
Jack would be in, maybe several days during as the year went by, and then, it wasn't really until the end when things were kind of in, what I would consider to be wrap up mode, when Jack was there full time and Sam was having some health problems and that sort of stuff, that Jack ended up being there. So.
Oh yeah. Sam had some.
Now the rumor is that Jack hated video games, and the other rumor was that Jack thought he was ultra religious. This is what I always heard. And he thought video games were the devil, and he bought Atari because he wanted the computer portion of it. Now, is there any truth to any of that?
I'm really just not even going to go into that. It's as far as I'm concerned, that's kind of out of my realm of ability to comment. So I love Jack very much, and I love Sam and everybody that was there, but I'm not going to go there. Sorry.
Could you comment on the fact, did he like video games? That's the one thing. It was like, was he a guy that was like a computer guy, and he was like, because I think, John, help me if I'm wrong here, but what isn't the rumor we've always heard that like he thought video games were going away, especially after the crash, and he thought the future was computers. Is that more
that was the rumor, but I don't know how much truth is in that, because a lot of people have said since then that Jack loved the business side of it, and he loved making money, honestly, and he didn't really care about it. That's what I've heard and believe in, over the fact that he was completely against video games. I don't believe
that. I don't necessarily know that there was a ton of interest for having him sit down and play a game, you know what I mean? And I think that's pretty much it, Yeah. So he was a great guy, though.
That's good to hear. I did a video defending Jack Trammell. Actually, I got a lot of heat on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, very interesting that you had to pull. Well, you didn't have to, but you pulled Sam into it, and you had him. What was Sam's favorite game? I have to ask. Was there one that he said, "Man, this is it. I love this game," and he took it home with him, or?
He would bring the systems home for his kids, of course.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they were kind of his litmus test when something was really good or not. But I would say that he liked to watch people play Aliens versus Predator. So he'd roll by the test department, and he'd be hanging out and watching that. I would say that my memory is that he would be hanging out there. So
that's how you know it's a good game, when other people watch you play it that don't normally play games. Awesome.
Yep. And who knew that was going to become an entire industry these days, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that's what I meant when I was raising my kids. My kids were like, they'd come in there and I'd be like, I'd have all the controllers and I'd be like, let's play. And they were like, I just want to watch you play.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's something about this generation. I'd be like, okay. And I'm a narcissist anyway. And I was like, yeah, look at daddy. I'm awesome. Yep. But I didn't realize we were kind of delving into this industry of where people just go on YouTube and watch human beings play video games. It's like, I'm Gen X. I'm like, why wouldn't you want to play it? I don't know.
It's a bit of a mystery to me as well, but here we are.
That's wild. So, were you involved with Atari carts?
No, that was my boss, John Scratch. Unfortunately, I can't say, much about that particular title, because I was busy doing my stuff. I was working on, like I said, sound effects for, Jag stuff, and trying to finish up my titles. And, I was working on, I was working on Kasumi Ninja. I was working on, Jack Nicholas, Cyber Golf. I was working on, a title that's not a whole lot known about, but Legion of the Undead. And I was doing iWar. So I was, I was very
iWar.
Busy. Yeah.
What about iWar? I like iWar a lot. I think that game gets a bad rap.
I agree. It was a fun little title. I mean, not super, super deep, but it was a fun little title.
Yeah. What was Legion of the Undead?
That was an interesting name.
Yeah, Legion of the Undead was originally supposed to be the follow-up title that used the Jaguar, the engine for Aliens versus Predator. So it was signed with Rebellion, and so it was basically a dungeon crawler, and using their technology that they had developed for Aliens versus Predator.
So what happened to that?
It got scrapped when Aliens versus Predator got done and everything else, started collapsing around Atari. Then it was an easy one to cut because it was pre-alpha. So if it was, it was not feature complete. So it was one of those things that's like easy to just walk away from a business standpoint.
Going back to Atari carts real quick, I know you don't have a lot of say in it, but I think Atari was right on the cusp of doing something very Nintendo-esque with that game, where it had Bentley Bear,
Yeah.
and they really could have started delving into their characters. We see that with Atari now, where they're
Right.
trying to make Pete from Outlaw a real character, and the guys from
Yep.
Dark Chambers. But that would have been something. Looking back now, would that have been something like, if we could go back in time? Would you think, hey, we need to make a game that's got like Charlie Chuck, Bentley Bear, Rendell the Red, and just and lean into those guys? You think that would have been a good idea?
Well, I mean, when you look at a development, overall development for a console, you need to have, at that time, a fighting game, right? So, Mortal Kombat 3 was the one, right? So we had MK3 machines there. We were going back and forth with, the developer of that, and, a whole bunch of issues with that didn't happen. So, Kasumi Ninja, Ultra Vortec, those were Fight for Life. Those were the ones that were, the stand-in for, what would be, hopefully a great fighting game. And I don't think really any of them, ever really made it close to that. And then because the Mario Kart was huge and selling like hotcakes, that, up from upper management came down and said, we need to have a Mario Kart game, so that was the whole mandate for that. So it was, create the memorable characters and have the fun kart experience.
That was a good game.
Yeah, no, I think it turned out really good. The colors were gorgeous in that game too. The background.
I like the castle level.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I have to ask though about the Cyber Golf game. Was that meant for the Jaguar?
It was a Jaguar CD title.
Did it come out?
No, it did not.
Okay.
Yeah, it was one of the ones, and that was being done by developed by Handmade Software, the guys that did Kasumi Ninja.
Oh, okay. And now, was that going to be another
Ninja Golf?
There you go. It all links
it was called Ninja Golf. Yes.
What? It links back to Ninja Golf.
Yep.
We need to do like 5 degrees of Ninja Golf sometime. But so, was that going to be another digitized golf game? Did you complete it, or was it near complete and just shelved because of the condition of the company? Or
yeah, it was basically another casualty like Legions of the Undead was, in that it was pre-alpha. We actually used we had 1,000,001 beta cam tapes of the Muirfield Village, and the flyovers and all that kind of stuff, and from every possible angle. So it was going to kind of be somewhat similar to what Highlander did, in that I guess it was, they used static images that you could walk around in. This one was going to be more, using the actual video from the sources, and you would be able to walk around, and it would trigger the video frames as you walked. So it was, kind of, stuff that hadn't been done before at the time.
Wow.
So, okay, that's a good point that you bring up too. I remember listening to the guy, and I can't remember his name, but he was the developer of Shadows of the Empire for the Nintendo 64. And if anybody remembers that game, that was an ambitious title, because there was like shooting, there was like a dungeon crawler element to it. There was like there was a part where they're on a train, so there was a lot of stuff going on.
Yep.
But he was like, at the time, it was like, the idea is like, we need to have the character go 360. And he was like, at the time, what does a guy do with his feet when he's spinning around? Like, they were like, we had no idea what somebody, like, does he step when you turn him, or does his feet stay? So I guess you guys with the Jaguar, all the time when you were developing new games, you were coming up with these things like, what do we do in this situation? Right. It's never been done. It was, I guess what's some of the challenges you remember guys going, I don't know what to do here, boss, help me out. What? I
mean, literally everything that you're talking about right now is what we were dealing with on a daily basis. I mean, a lot of times it was to, like Aliens versus Predator, to attach the camera to the player so that you didn't have to deal with that. But then, we had third person ones like Highlander where you had to deal with it. So it just became, trying to deal with it. And then the execution of that became the experience of the art team for the developers. So sometimes it worked out better than others, right? So because some of the teams were not, AAA teams, they just didn't have the staff that could do, that level. of execution.
I bet. Now, well, I don't know if do you have a follow up to that, Vinny, that you wanted to ask?
I was going to say, so it's like you're talking about like a team of John Stolls. It would be like a couple of guys would be like, hey, can you do combat and make it 3D? And they're in there with their, they're like on the Commodore 64 crying and drinking a lot of alcohol. So I understand.
I wouldn't say that would be, very far from the truth. It was pretty difficult because, again, because we were kind of, treading new ground, especially with the 3D titles, in that, they were trying to figure out their motion capture stuff. And then, we were jumping into, I remember when we did a couple of different games for, we used a motion capture place in LA, and we ended up using, 1% of the information that they got, so it was, I don't want to say it was a waste, but
right.
the ability to take that much data at the time and pull it in to execute what we needed to execute was just, I think it was a combination of horsepower in the computers just not being able to do it, and lack of maybe experience on the programmer's standpoint.
Now, I'm just curious. So you said, again, a lot of this stuff, it was kind of difficult to figure out. You're on the cutting edge of technology. To me, it seemed like early on there was a lot of flight games, a lot of tank games in the 3D world. Is that because they were just easier, like kind of easier to figure out?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about something that, the Jaguar was, 3D, and everything was, crazy with all this real-time rendering, and, it was, gradient shading and all that kind of stuff. So it was, we were doing everything we could, and we kind of looked at what the machine was capable of. And I think, maybe even more importantly, where the development tools were, because that was kind of a huge struggle in that, if you had a really great development environment and who had a ton of support for people who were not AAA houses and, kind of doing everything that they could, things might have been different.
Well, let me ask you about the development, because the rumor that I've heard, and maybe this is well known among programmers, the Jaguar, when you programmed for it, it was literally like, here, figure it out. Whereas like if you programmed for the upcoming PlayStation at that time, you got tons of documentation, tons of resources and stuff. So it was literally just, here's your Jaguar development kit.
Yep.
I hope you know what to do with it.
Yeah, with a lot of the stuff from companies like Nintendo and from Sony, they would deliver the development environment, and you'd have the the compiler and everything that you needed to be able to do to program your stuff, and then you had, of course, the development hardware, and PlayStation, just like everything else, and Nintendo, early Nintendo stuff, just like everything else, had issues, just like the Jaguar did. We had a couple of bugs in some of the chips and that kind of stuff, but when they handed a developer a development system, there was no infrastructure with it. So a big part of, if you look at development time for a game, right? So say you've got a year to develop for a game, right? Mm-hmm. You can hit the ground running. If your development team needs to learn the infrastructure of the development environment, then, that's going to take some time, right? And then you're going to hit the ground running once you've got your design, and then you're going to move forward to getting feature complete, and then fix all your bugs, and then release it, right? With the Jaguar, especially in the early days for things like Kasumi Ninja and Ultra Vortec and a bunch of the other ones, the developers had to create their own compilers, and they had to make their own development environment from scratch. And so but you were still within the 1 year timeline for developing or for delivering the game. So a lot of times, the development environment or lack thereof was a bit of a detriment to, it was a very big detriment to the quality of the titles that we could complete.
So in that year, you had to develop the tools to make the game, and then make the game. Wow.
Now, later on, we did, Atari did deliver, what it was fairly bare bones, from a development environment, but it was still a development environment, and they did have tools. So, we eventually did start handing out stuff, but that was well beyond when we were into development for the initial titles, the launch titles.
Right. And there was 2 launch titles, correct? For the
There
Jaguar?
was Cybermorph,
And then Trevor McFur.
Trevor McFur, and the Crescent Galaxy.
And
Yes.
those were the 2. And that was because the environment was so or they had to develop their own environments. There's just no way to get games in time.
Yep.
How long did the developers have to get their games ready for launch? How long did they have the development kits for approximately?
I mean, most of the time it was 9 months to a year. I mean,
Okay.
in those days when we were talking about before we started doing the CD stuff, we had to have them delivered in enough time to be able to get the carts programmed, right? And then get all of the carts put into the boxes, right? And then get those sent to market. So it's not like today where you can just, you know, push it out and it can go be downloaded from the Xbox store, right? It's and it was exactly the same thing with 7200, 5200, you know, 2600, all of those machines.
So now it's making a lot of sense why there was 2 games at launch, and then there was, you know, again, people were complaining there wasn't games coming out quickly.
Right.
Well, that's the reason why. That's just incredible insight there. It's incredibly sad, though.
Oh, it was tough times, that's for sure. I mean, a lot of people really give it, you know, like you were saying earlier, some of the worst games ever made. Yeah, well, they were, and for a reason, you know.
And just the fact that they were done at all is incredible, though. I mean,
correct.
Again.
Well, and we originally had some pretty hefty bugs in the infrastructure and in the actual Jaguar itself. So the problem was when somebody was creating their own development environment, you didn't necessarily know whether a bug that you were seeing was from an inherent bug in the hardware or if it was from the development environment. You know, the development of the development environment, which was happening concurrently with the actual development of the game, right?
Oh my God, I'm getting a headache listening to.
Well, I think the thing
we did it, you know, and that was the whole thing is that, you know, it wasn't about, you know, wham, we didn't have the tools, or wham, we didn't have this, or wham, we didn't have that. It was
how it was.
It was all about, you know, doing everything that we could do to try to make Atari succeed. That was our passion.
I love that passion.
And we slept in our offices. You know, there was so many of us, myself included, that literally lived at the office. You know, and I worked with teams that were in the UK, so I would be in, you know, at midnight when they were getting up at 8 a.m, you know, and that was starting the day. So a lot of times I was there, you know, literally weeks on end. So
this wasn't a job. This was your life.
It literally was. I had a sleeping bag under my desk, and I would say that almost every other producer did as well.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Talk about
that's wild.
Wow.
That's wild. In retrospect, if people weren't forcing the 3D stuff, you could have made a hell of a lot of great, easier to make 2D games, platformers. And
it was a sprite monster. The Jaguar was a total sprite monster, and especially with the CDs. So I mean, all of a sudden we had, you know, so much space to be able to power all those sprites off of the CD. And I mean, yeah, like you said, we could have really done some amazing games. But you know, I think at the time the Jaguar is 64-bit conversation meant that the Jaguar had to be, all the games had to be 3D. So because 64-bit meant 3D for some reason, you know, because Nintendo at the time, they had their 3D, I'm going to completely forget that it was their F-Zero, and they had the X, it was FX, Super FX chip. Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So, you know, higher power, you know, meant 3D games.
So the 64-bit thing probably hurt it way more than it helped. That marketing campaign was a detriment, would you say, to the console?
A lot of it wasn't necessarily about making, you know, a fantastic game. It was about making sure that the capabilities of the machine could be showed off.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
man,
especially for the early titles, right?
That makes so much sense, because in all art, there's that temptation too. Like, I'm a bass player and the best bass players a lot of times have to lay back to serve the song. If they're overplaying, like, look at me, I can do this. Sometimes you screw up the song, especially in that role. And it's kind of the same thing that we're talking about with the Jaguar here. That's unreal. We won't keep you much longer, but I'm going to ask you this: what, as an Atarian and as a gamer, what's your favorite Atari game that you've ever played?
I think hands down, Slime World is still one of my favorite games. You know.
All right. I want to
Yeah.
play that 8 people. We got to come over sometime.
Yeah, right.
We'll dig up some lynxes out of the ground or something like that.
There you go.
You have anything else for our man here, Ted? John?
No, feel free to have me back anytime. I'm willing to blah blah about old Atari stuff anytime.
Yeah, I feel like we just kind of scratched the surface here, so I definitely want to do something more with you. Maybe we could do a Q&A thing or something.
Well, you want to talk about the controller too, right? I mean, that's a whole conversation in itself. So, I've got a huge soapbox. I think it's right over in the corner back there.
Well, what's crazy is we just had somebody we just interviewed, and I haven't even told John this. I've had 3 messages of questions that are this long of people wanting to ask that guy. I know with Ted, no offense to Jason, but I know with Ted, they'll have 10 times that many because, I mean, there's not many people walking around that we know that was there for that long.
Yeah.
Well, and it's kind of the two sides of the coin with Ted here. You got many great years, but also kind of the end of what we all know as Atari.
Yeah.
And with Jason, you kind of had some optimism, the start of maybe something new. So I think
I definitely feel like I have optimism as well. Like I said, I'm very far from the woe is me. I'm very much into the, well, you know, we didn't have everything that we needed. We had, you know, very little development tools. We had, you know, blah, 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 but we still got stuff out. We still got stuff to market. It wasn't great, but we got stuff to market.
Yeah.
And I did. You got some great stuff too. And look at Atari now. Atari has resurrected itself in some ways, and
use the Jaguar a lot. Yeah.
And I think that's the other thing too. I think there may be a future for the Jaguar too, and the Lynx. Yeah. At least the games and the homebrews hitting the VCS stuff like that.
There's a ton of homebrew
I can tell you on the YouTube channel here, and again we'll wrap up real fast, but in the YouTube channel, I hear more people wanting Lynx stuff, wanting to know about the Jaguar, the Lynx, even the 7800. That's the stuff they're really interested in now. Like we know about the 2600, and it's great. We love it, but we're ready to really dig into this time.
There is a case to be made that the Lynx is the best Atari system to ever be made.
It's fantastic,
and it was the number one portable until 15 years ago or 20 years ago, perhaps. It was the best and the most advanced, and that really.
It was really great because it not only, you know, it had color, right? So it had definite, you know, abilities over the Game Boy and at the time, even the Game Boy Color, but it also had the horsepower, you know, advantage there. And on top of that, it had a lot of really great arcade titles and, you know, like Steel Talons and APB and Rampart. And, you know, those were great titles. And to be able to play those cool arcade games in, you know, sitting at your desk or, you know, on your couch or whatever at that time was amazing.
Yeah.
All you need is 65,000 AA batteries.
That's right. Exactly. For sure.
Thank you so much, Ted. You're the man, man.
It's been a ton of fun. We got to do this again. I'm so glad we finally got to do it, Ted. Thank you so much.
Super cool guy. Thank you for coming on, man.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Didn't I tell you that Ted was just an incredible guy? The man believed in Atari and worked hard to allow it to succeed. I'd love to get more into the Jaguar and its design flaws, how it truly compared to the other consoles of the time, its strengths and weaknesses, and so much more. We couldn't even get into his time at Accolade or Mattel, which we have to do sometime. Ted, if you're watching this, the interview was a blast. Thank you for coming on the channel and doing the video, and I hope we get to do something else real soon. And I hope you all leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. We have all kinds of interviews on the channel with people like Jason Hill, PR manager from Hasbro Atari, David Dentt, developer of Ninja Golf, and so much more. So check them out. I'll leave them in a pinned comment down below. Also, please consider joining our Patreon. Your support helps us to produce more great content, and you get first access to audio interviews and other videos. You even get behind-the-scenes stuff and member-only live streams. And even if you can't or won't support, you can head over there anyway and get audio-only versions of the podcast free to download and share. So check that out. And join our Discord channel. That's free too, and we are always talking about Atari there. It's like a chat room you can jump in and out of at will, and just discuss things with people whenever you want. Links to the Patreon and Discord in the description. Okay, guys, I'm the 7800 Pro Gamer, a guy who can't get a word in edgewise when Vinnie gets rolling, and I want to thank you all for watching our interview with Ted. And remember, stay classy, Atarians.